Hello, my name is Olorotimi Osha. Today, I want to talk about the abuse of an emergency evaluation petition. Of course, an emergency evaluation petition has become, uh, very pertinent in our national conversation because of the tragic uh, murder suicide perpetrated by Virginia's former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. I've mentioned that incidentally, his older brother, Roger Fairfax, who's incumbent dean of Howard University Law School, was assistant dean of the law school I graduated from, George Washington University Law School, and his sister-in-law um, was my professor in law school. But sometimes we might struggle that if family and friends had done an emergency petition, could might the disaster, the murder suicide, have been averted? Could he have been averted? Of course, that would be uh, Monday morning quarterbacking. So I'm not going to get into that. I've done other videos discussing that, but today I want to talk about how I was a victim of an abuse of an emergency evaluation petition. Today, I'm going to say what an emergency evaluation petition is not to be used for. An emergency evaluation petition, in any event, is something that violates, it's out of the norm, right? So when you hear an emergency, it's also in our constitution. Emergencies are, uh, they're done under, they evoke, uh, you know, extenuating circumstances, right? Extenuating circumstances, and it means it puts aside the constitutional rights, temporarily, very temporarily, in order to avert imminent threat to life, right? Imminent threat to life, public safety issues, and it's very temporary. Now, an emergency evaluation petition in the state of Maryland, where I was living at the time, I was violated on May 16, 2023, is used only uh, under two conditions. One, the evaluee is the evaluee, that's the person being petitioned, must have a mental illness, right? Must have a mental illness. That's one. Then secondly, they have to pose a public safety threat. They have to be a danger. So a threat to life, to their life. That means they're suicidal, or to somebody else's life, the public right, member of the community. So that's or homicidal. So they're either suicidal or homicidal, right, or both. So those are the conditions, and then a judge, who's supposed to be a neutral judge, finds probable cause after the petition states facts. What happened, the condition, the mental health status of the evaluee, all of that stated, and the judge approves the petition. And what happens from there is that um, a police officer, law enforcement, they try and uh, detain the individual. They place them in handcuffs and put them in and transport them, usually through an ambulance, right, to the nearest hospital to be evaluated by a medical, a licensed forensic evaluator to be evaluated, right? That's so they're just taking them to a hospital, not to jail. So they haven't yet committed a crime, but they're saying because of their mental state, their mental illness, right? They pose a current danger, they're public safety threat, and it's under the state's police powers. The state has police powers. That's over, public safety, mental health, which is under medical, and welfare. So those are things that are within the purview of the state powers as delineated by the 10th Amendment. Remember, the 10th Amendment, those powers not delegated to the federal government, that's the US government, or Congress as a federal government by the Constitution, or prohibited to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or the people. And one of those is, the public safety, things dealing with public safety, mental health, because they're not expressly stated in the US Constitution. So I've done videos also explaining, detailing, the powers, and explaining what an emergency evaluation petition is. Now, of course, it's done. The petitioner is, typically is in Maryland. The petitioner is called an interested party. They can have a financial interest. It can be done maliciously, right? You don't do it because you've taken up the cudgels against someone, and so you want to use it to punish them, right? It's not somebody you're in an argument with, right? So it has to be done under penalty of perjury. So they have to swear an oath to getting and before possibly a commissioner, right, before a judge approves it. And it's not an arrest warrant. It's not an arrest warrant. But it's funny the way the police goes to execute it. It's the police that goes to execute it, and so it doesn't give authorization for the police to go into the house of someone, right? It doesn't. But if they can see the person in public, then they can place the person, the evaluee, in handcuffs, right? But as with anything, so an emergency evaluation petition, unfortunately, is normally done ex parte, because the idea is the evaluee is not in their right state of mind, so they don't have capacity. So importantly, it has to be somebody who doesn't have capacity. It's assumed that they don't have capacity, so that's why it's done ex parte, that they can't be served. But under normally, uh, every every accusation, for instance, anything that's filed against you in court, and it is a proceeding, it's a process that's filed against you because it's taken away your rights. Anything filed against you in under US law, right? You have a right to notice, you have a right to a hearing. That means they have to let you know, and so you have a right to a hearing. A hearing will help you dispute it, right? To dispute it, you could call your witnesses to dispute it, to contend with uh, the intent to take away your rights, to detain you, and then you're entitled to an impartial tribunal, or an impartial judge, right? You're entitled to all of those things. That's protected by the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment gives you the right of due process and equal protection of the laws, right? So, but because it's done ex parte, sometimes this is averted. So that's the gist of it. But right now, I want to talk about Jide Iwarere, the person who did the petitioning. So an interested party can be a family member, it can be friends who know you well, not surface, right? Because it's your mental health is protected by the First Amendment and a bunch of other amendments as well that protect your what's called your zone of privacy. Those are your privacy. That's your privacy interest, right? And so it's protected, and people you don't want to get involved with it can get involved with it. The reason why they're getting involved in this situation is that they know you well, they're close to you, and you pose a public safety threat at that moment, and they know you well to know that you're mentally ill and you need help, right? So that's what's going on. So the interested party would be a family member, a friend, close friend who knows you well, a neighbor who knows you well, not someone random, right? So, but they don't have any financial interest in you, so that it's not something that someone close to you who's trying to get you detained so they can have power of attorney over you and access your money or something, right? So they can have a financial interest in you, right? It can't be malicious. It can't be done in a malicious way. However, Jide Iwarere did maliciously file an emergency evaluation petition filled with fabrications, committed perjury, that I wasn't, I don't have a mental illness. I wasn't going through a mental health crisis. Um, he did it in a malicious way. And of course, the judge who he got to approve it, Judge Bibi, apparently, I learned from the police and some other people that he has a close relationship. He knows her well. She knows him well. 12 of his sons, 12 of his kids, attorneys, a son and a daughter, attorneys, a daughter who graduated from Howard University Law School. The judge, Judge BBM Barry, graduated from Howard University, where Jide Iwarere has been a professor for over 40 years, right? Thereabout. So right now, I want to talk about. I'm just going to quickly talk about how I was, around this time, prior to May 14, 2023. So at that time, I was an auditor in the Department of the Navy. My mentor was the Auditor General of the Navy, Don Jette L. Gilmore. On December 25, 2022, I actually introduced Jide Iwarere to Don Jette L. Gilmore. He thanked her for all she was doing for me. He described me as his nephew. Now, Jide Iwarere is not my uncle. There's no consanguinity between us whatsoever. He's not my uncle. We're not blood related. Jide Iwarere didn't sponsor me for anything. He's never paid a dime towards my education. Nothing like that. No relationship whatsoever, regarding that, right? So in any event, I also have an aunt, by the way, who's my aunt. She's my blood relative. She's my mother's first cousin, who's a psychiatrist here in the state of Maryland. Incidentally, she has a law degree. She got a law degree from Nigeria, graduated, have from, you know, was called to the bar and all that. But as you know, America is, she changed careers, went into, became a psychiatric nurse, practitioner. So she's a psychiatrist in the state of Maryland, licensed to treat and diagnose mental illnesses. I'm close to her. I have no history of mental illness. Incidentally, and I've talked about it. I was wrongfully petitioned, and they did falsify things. But Maryland state psychiatrists, of course, apologized to me, and did determine, and they did write, they did state, tell the judge that no, I don't have any mental illness, and they couldn't see any mental illness. I wasn't prescribed drugs. I wasn't given any drugs, no medication. So, of course, I was released. And, of course, they told me right away that I have a lawsuit against Jide Iwarere and, of course, the state of Maryland. But the state of Maryland has filed false charges against me, saying that the road cops who ostensibly came to deliver the emergency petition, that I assaulted them, even though they were the ones who assaulted me. And they lied. They didn't come with any emergency petition document with them. It was still at the sheriff's office, so they lied. So why they were in my home, they came and gaslighted me and created what's called a swatting. So they fabricated a swatting, a false emergency crisis. And of course, they eventually injured me. I was shot in the head. These are permanent stitches scarring from where I was shot in the head with a taser gun. That's what I was told. The projectile was from a taser gun. I guess, that's in violation of police procedure. They're not supposed to shoot above the shoulder, I understand, but they shot me in the head. They tased me multiple times. There are permanent injuries and scars all over my body. But, that aside, I'm going to go back and talk about what was going on, my life as of May 16, 2023. So prior to that, as I said, I was working in the Department of the Navy as an auditor. I had filed certain complaints that were in progress with the Office of Special Counsel. Those are my constitutional rights, and I'm an auditor, right? When I observed fraud and misconduct in the Department of the Navy, I filed a complaint against my supervisor, Nathan R. Brown. These things were all in progress. I filed a complaint against, several people. Those are because I worked in a classified area. I don't have to get into details, but those were in progress. I also had filed a discrimination complaint concerning a bait and switch situation, and I had retained a lawyer. Right, I paid almost $20,000 in cash out of pocket, and this was going on fine, splendidly, no trouble at all. Jide Iwarere was always very solicitous. He would ask me about my job. He would always inquire. Like a Nigerian guy. He's a village guy, so from the village, and so they have this way to inveigle, sneaky way, right, of behaving, right, as they say, it's like a snake in the green grass, right, and very cunning, tricky way. I didn't see it as that at that time. I thought he was, really interested. He was just interested in my, my career progress. I'm a very career-minded person. Um, so he would inquire, and I'd tell him. As of May 11th, I had been offered tentatively a new position, and with a very large base salary in the six figures. And I told you they were, I was excited as to be director of financial crimes. This person who was interested in me, the recruiter, told me so many great, wonderful things that I, really liked, like how I could, I was to be in a role, how I could go and lecture, be a professor at a university while I was also doing some other work, consulting, in addition to being director of financial crimes. So many international financial crimes, doing many different things. I was excited. And I told Jide Iwarere, this was May 11th, 2023. I had no idea this triggered him. There were so many other job offers that I had prior to that. The Auditor General, and I'll just say it, there were several jobs she sent me. One of them was as an attorney, to be an attorney in one of the departments in the Department of Directorates in the Department of the Navy. However, I already had my plans, right? I wanted to complete because my job as an auditor, I was just taking courses. They were just sending me on courses. In fact, I was due for to travel to Florida in July. They were sending me for special training in Florida in July. They were giving me a corporate card, right? They had just signed off for me to get a corporate card. The federal government, you can imagine the federal government giving me a corporate card. So it was all exciting stuff for me. And I was due to travel in July. I was due for another training. My job was to have classes every day. Wake up from 8 to 5. I'm taking courses. That's it. That was my job, right? As of that time, I was due for training in May at the Pentagon, directly at the Pentagon, right? I usually used to work remotely from home. Once in a while, I went in to sign up to do some things, but my job was at the Pentagon. I was supposed to go for some other training again at the Pentagon. So all of this was going on. In the meanwhile, so my career was going great. There were so many other job offers, so many other federal government agencies, uh, you know, pursuing me, making tentative offers, so they're just offers all across the board. There are several. So the world, um, I realized I knew the world was my oyster, right? I knew that. By the way, let me just quickly give my background. And this is not to brag, but just to quickly give an idea. So I have a bachelor's degree from Columbia University, the Ivy League in New York, right? I have a bachelor, another undergrad degree from undergrad major in accounting from Troy University. I also have my MBA in accounting. An MBA is Master of Business Administration in accounting from Troy University as well. Troy is in Troy, Alabama, in the South. I have my Doctor of Law degree. The Latin is called Juris Doctor, Doctor of Law degree from George Washington University Law School in Washington, D.C. I have additional education. I did a program in international human rights law at Oxford University in the United Kingdom. I I was an exchange student and intellectual property law fellow at um, Bocconi University in Milan, in Italy. I also have a bachelor's degree from the University of Jos in Nigeria. So I have several degrees, several different majors. I have a major in accounting, major in mathematics, major in history, so many different things. So I was a pre-med student. I was once a biological science major, once an engineering major. That's what I loved about being American, right? Living in America, I got to study. I really relished my studies and I was putting it to good use. In the federal government, there were agencies that wanted that. So I realized the world was my oyster. In addition to that, I didn't just do that. I actually had business ventures in Nigeria. I had a business partner, my childhood friend, and there's so many other things that I was involved in. Of course, I'd started a digital magazine, which I funded out of pocket. So as of summer of 2023, my friend in Nigeria was, I was planning on going to Nigeria for the summer later on in the summer. I hadn't been to Nigeria since 1999, so I was planning on going home. And one of the things I intended to do was my friend was helping me to look for a newspaper that we could buy and, integrate it with my online digital platform. I also had, there were also different other things that I was doing. We were doing, so there was other businesses I was involved in, right? And we were now going to finalize all of these things as I went back to Nigeria. This was what I was planning on doing. So things were going great. Relationship wise, I just started a relationship with someone, a woman who, she's, very smart woman as well, very smart woman. Um, she was a chartered accountant, and at that time, I remember what she was asking was, okay, hey, she bought a ticket. Well, she had money for a ticket. She was putting in X amount of money. I need to, cough up my portion for her. We're going to spend big vacation summer together. So this was what was going on. So everything was going on great. My regular routine, I went to the gym every week. I worked out hard every week at the gym at LA Fitness. In fact, on May 15, after I'd been assaulted by Jide Iwarere and my neighbor on May 14, 2023, I was at the gym on May 15, 2023. May 16 was a swatting. So, um, so everything was going well, right? Everything was going well. But surprisingly, I would learn that Jide Iwarere was really depraved, was a envious, depraved maniac. After I'd been swatted, I had no idea Jide Iwarere was involved with the police raiding me. It was unexplained the way the police came and raided me on May 16, 2023. The way they did it was barbaric, it was illegal, it was unconstitutional, and then they lied, they fabricated their police report on top of it. So when I found myself in the hospital, I was making, I called Jide Iwarere because I remembered his number. I had no idea it was involved. So importantly, because I was removed naked from my home, completely naked in handcuffs, all bloody, dumped in a hospital. When I called Jide Iwarere, because his number was in my head, I didn't have my phone with me. So I asked him to get me my mother's number because I needed to let my mother know I was in the hospital. I needed to let my family know, my friends. Jide Iwarere, as soon as I mentioned my mother, he said the craziest thing to me. And it was like a movie. And the way he acted, it was like those psycho serial killers, the way they are in the movie, those creepy types, right? That they've been acting, they're like a Jekyll and Hyde character, and they suddenly reveal themselves that they've been, you know, haunting you, stalking you all this while, planning their revenge and all that. This was what he was telling me uh, when I was at the hospital. I think this was May 19, 2023. Because I was asking for my mom's number because nobody knew where I was. In fact, later on when I was released, I saw people my friend said they'd been calling my phone, but my phone's dead. The police stole that phone, right? But I saw my social media, right? People were looking for me there. People were asking, "Where are you, Luke? We don't see you posting on Facebook. Are you okay?" And things like that. Because I use my Facebook as sort of like an archive to record history because I'm a historian. So nobody saw anything awry in my posts on Facebook, right? And so Jide Iwarere, this monster, is the only one who saw fabrications. And I'm going to continue this and I'll read the fabrications in the EP that he wrote, right? Um, so on that day, I asked him for my mother's number, and he said something strange to me. And that was when I realized, okay, this guy is crazy. Once I said my mother, he's a stutterer, right? So you have to be patient with him. So he goes, my mother, that he said when Sheye was 2 years old, that she came to America. Here, can you imagine? This was what he was telling me. When Sheye was 2 years old, when my mom came to America, how they were struggling, they were going through stuff. He was just telling me this crazy stuff. This wasn't the time for him to be telling me this. I was telling him that, look, hey, I was assaulted by police. They raided me. I still didn't know why they came to assault me in my home. I've been injured. On that day when they raided me, I thought they were going to kill me, right? I thought I was going to die on that day. I thought I was going to. So, first of all, I was just excited. All of that didn't matter. The first few days in the hospital, because there was a bandage on my head, right? Because they'd stitched me. There were these tubes. They'd drawn blood from me without my permission. So they told my kidneys had been badly damaged, so they had to put me on drip. Right, it was just liquid IV, whatever. They said it was more efficient for the liquid to go directly into my, through IV. Because I asked them, why don't I just drink water? Because they said the tasing damaged my kidneys. My whole body was stiff. I couldn't. I have permanent nerve damage. It's been over 3 years now. I have permanent nerve damage, right? There's some areas I have no nerve, there's permanent nerve damage there. But as of that time, I couldn't feel my hands, nothing. So they had to place me on drip they said, to save my kidneys and things like that. I'd never had kidney problem in my life. Never had any of those things. They said my blood pressure had gone high. So they had to get it back down and all that because of the tasing. Cops literally wanted to fry me. 5 cops were tasing me at the same time. I literally, on that day, I had to fight, struggle to stay alive. It was like I was about to go somewhere, I was about to die, and I just kept fight. I fought to live on that day. So Jide Iwarere sent cops to my home to try and murder me. Right? He didn't come with the cops for the because to execute the evaluation. They didn't come to execute the emergency petition. They didn't come to execute it anyway. They came to assault me, to remove me, because the cops knew there was nothing wrong with me. So with Jide Iwarere, they fabricated an emergency, had evacuated my building, and Jide Iwarere gave them the okay to assault me. So on that day, he told me what my mom did to him. One of his fabrications. He's a delusional man. And so I was stunned that he told me, and eventually he told me how he was the one who went to go and file an emergency evaluation petition against me. And I was stunned that he was the reason why I was in the hospital. And he refused to give me my mother's number. Right? He refused to give me my mother's number. So for weeks, my family, nobody knew where I was except Jide Iwarere, who had lied. My name is Olurotimi Osha, and I'll continue this video. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.